The importance of Startup Nation. Some books explain history, others analyze economics, but very few capture the essence of a nation's spirit and show how that spirit can inspire the entire world. Dan Senor and Saul Singer's Startup Nation. The story of Israel's economic miracle is one of those rare works. Since its release in 2009, it has become a global bestseller, studied in universities, cited by leaders, and admired by entrepreneurs worldwide. Why is this book important? Because it tackles one of the most fascinating paradoxes of our time. How did Israel, a tiny country of just over 9 million people with scarce resources and constant conflict, become a global hub for innovation, producing more startups per capita than any other country? At its core, Startup Nation is about much more than Israel. It's about the DNA of innovation. It asks universal questions. What drives creativity? How does adversity fuel breakthroughs instead of blocking them? And how can any person or country build resilience and agility in the face of challenge? These are questions not just for Israelis, but for anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur, a policymaker, or someone dreaming of your first big idea, a global blueprint for innovation. The book's importance lies in its role as a blueprint. By examining Israel's unique ecosystem, it distills lessons that can be applied anywhere. It shows that innovation isn't about perfect conditions, abundant resources, or political stability. It's about mindset, culture, and urgency. For nations, it reveals how to create policies that support entrepreneurship. For companies, it shows how to encourage risk-taking and adaptability. For individuals, it proves that obstacles can become opportunities. Why Israel? Why now? Israel's rise didn't happen by chance. It was shaped by unique factors. Compulsory military service that teaches leadership, teamwork, and improvisation. An immigrant culture that thrives on adaptability and reinvention. A history of adversity that creates resilience and urgency. Government support that channels resources toward innovation. Despite being in a volatile region, Israel thrives by turning disadvantages into strengths. The message is clear. Challenges, when met with creativity, can fuel progress. Challenging our assumptions. Most of us assume success comes from stability, wealth, or size. Israel proves the opposite. With limited land and water, and surrounded by political hostility, it has still produced global breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and defense. The book's power is that it shatters the myth of perfect conditions. If Israel can build success under such constraints, then anyone can. Nations and individuals alike are challenged to stop waiting for ideal circumstances and start innovating now. For entrepreneurs and dreamers, on a personal level, Startup Nation is a must-read for dreamers and builders. It shows that you don't need flawless conditions to start, you need courage, creativity, and persistence. The stories of Israeli entrepreneurs who turned small ideas into billion-dollar companies prove that innovation is born not from comfort, but from necessity. It's a call to action. Start where you are with what you have. A source of hope. At its deepest level, the book offers hope. In a world often filled with stories of conflict or scarcity, it tells a different story of resilience, courage, and ingenuity. It reminds us that no matter how small or disadvantaged we feel, we can still create something extraordinary. Innovation is not the privilege of the few, it is the possibility of the many. Relevance beyond borders. The reason the book resonates globally is because its lessons transcend Israel. Nations like Singapore, India, and Rwanda have studied its model. Tech leaders in Silicon Valley often cite it when discussing how to build entrepreneurial cultures. For individuals, the message is just as relevant. Adopt the startup mindset. Take risks, experiment, learn fast, and try again. That is how progress is made, whether in business or in life. In short, the importance of Startup Nation lies in its ability to inspire individuals to overcome fear and innovate, guide nations and organizations to build cultures of resilience, challenge assumptions about what success requires, offer hope that adversity can be an advantage. It's not just a book about Israel. It's a book about human potential. It reminds us that greatness doesn't come from waiting for perfect conditions. It comes from creating solutions in imperfect ones. That's why everyone should read Startup Nation. Because whether you're building a country, a company, or a personal dream, its message is universal. Constraints can fuel creativity, and adversity can be the birthplace of miracles. Who are Dan Senor Saul Singer? Every book reflects not only its subject, but also the voices of its authors, their experiences, perspectives, and passions. Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle is no exception. Behind its pages stand Dan Senor and Saul Singer, two men with very different backgrounds who came together to tell a story that would capture the imagination of the world. Their unique blend of political insight, economic analysis, and cultural observation makes the book not just a study of Israel, but a global guide to innovation. The strategist and global thinker. Dan Senor is a policy advisor, commentator, and investor with deep ties to both government and business. Born in 1971 in New York, he grew up in Canada, but remained connected to his Jewish heritage and Israel's story. Senor studied history and business at the University of Western Ontario and Hebrew University of Jerusalem, later completing his MBA at Harvard Business School. His career bridged the worlds of politics and finance. He worked in the U.S. Senate, advised the Department of Defense, and became a senior advisor during the U.S. administration of George W. Bush, particularly in post-war Iraq. This experience gave Senor first-hand exposure to geopolitics, nation-building, and economic policy, in regions marked by conflict insight that proved invaluable when analyzing Israel's success amid adversity. Later, he entered the private sector as a venture capitalist, further grounding him in the world of startups and investment. In Startup Nation, Senor brings a global strategist's eye. He understands how nations rise or stumble, how policies affect entrepreneurship, and how global markets respond to innovation. The journalist and storyteller. Saul Singer, born in 1961, is a journalist and writer best known for his work with the Jerusalem Post, where he served as an editorial page editor and columnist. Unlike Senor, whose background is in politics and finance, Singer comes from journalism, giving him a sharp ability to craft narratives that resonate with readers. Singer immigrated to Israel from the United States, experiencing firsthand the immigrant drive that the book highlights as central to Israel's culture of innovation. His writings often explore Israeli society, US, Israel relations, and the intersection of politics and technology. In Startup Nation, Singer brings the power of storytelling. Through vivid profiles of entrepreneurs, military veterans, and innovators, he makes Israel's economic miracle not just an analysis, but a human story, why they wrote the book. Senor and Singer came together with one central question. How did Israel, against all odds, become a global center of innovation? Their goal was not to glorify Israel, but to analyze it. They wanted to provide a case study that nations, businesses, and individuals everywhere could learn from. At the time of writing, Israel was already known for producing iconic companies like Checkpoint, Teva, and Waze, but its story hadn't yet been captured in a way that connected history, culture, and economics for a global audience. They wrote the book to answer questions like, why does Israel have more startups per capita than anywhere else? How do constant threats and limited resources fuel, rather than hinder, innovation? What lessons can other nations and entrepreneurs take from Israel's example? The collaboration of perspectives. The strength of Startup Nation lies in the author's complementary perspectives. Senor brings the macro view, how governments, policies, and geopolitics shape economies. Senor brings the micro view, stories of individuals who embody innovation. Together, they create a narrative that is both analytical and deeply human. Reception and influence. When the book was published in 2009, it quickly became a bestseller. Business leaders, politicians, and educators embraced it as essential reading. Governments from Singapore to India cited it when developing policies to foster entrepreneurship. In the US, it became popular among Silicon Valley innovators and venture capitalists. Even more importantly, the book reshaped the way people saw Israel. Instead of being known only for conflict, Israel began to be recognized for creativity, technology, and economic dynamism. Philosophy of the authors. Both Senor and Singer share a core belief that innovation is not about resources, but about mindset. They emphasize values like resilience, improvisation, and the willingness to challenge authority traits deeply embedded in Israeli culture. Their philosophy resonates globally. Whether you live in a wealthy nation or a developing one, whether you're starting a company or pursuing a personal dream, the message is the same. Your limitations can become your strengths if you cultivate the right mindset. In short, Dan Senor and Saul Singer are more than co-authors. They're interpreters of a phenomenon. Senor brings global strategy and investment experience. Singer brings cultural depth and human storytelling. Together, they crafted a book that is part analysis, part inspiration, and part roadmap. Their backgrounds, one in government and finance, the other in journalism and society, allow Startup Nation to speak to a wide audience. And their purpose was clear: to show the world how innovation flourishes not in ease, but in adversity, and how any nation or individual can apply those lessons. That is why their book continues to resonate. Because in telling Israel's story, Senor and Singer remind us all of our potential to innovate, adapt, and thrive, even when the odds are against us. The purpose of Startup Nation. Every great book begins with a problem it wants to solve, or a mystery it wants to illuminate. For Dan Senor and Saul Singer, that mystery was clear. How did Israel, a tiny country with scarce natural resources, constant conflict, and a small population, become one of the most innovative economies in the world? The purpose of Startup Nation is to answer that question in a way that inspires, informs, and challenges readers, whether they are policymakers, business leaders, or ordinary dreamers. 1. To challenge the myth of perfect conditions. Too often, people assume innovation requires stability, wealth, or size. But Israel had none of these advantages. From its founding in 1948, the nation faced existential threats: limited water, barren land, and ongoing security challenges. And yet, it produced more startups per capita than anywhere else. The authors wrote this book to shatter the myth that innovation depends on ideal conditions. They wanted to show that adversity can be fuel, not a barrier. If Israel can innovate under such constraints, then anyone, any country, company, or individual can do the same. 2. To provide a blueprint for nations. The book also serves as a case study for governments. How can a small country with limited resources compete in the global economy? By studying Israel, policymakers can see what works. Education systems that emphasize problem solving and debate. Mandatory military service that teaches leadership and improvisation. Immigration policies that bring diverse talent and perspectives. Government support for venture capital and R&D. The purpose is not to say, copy Israel exactly, but to inspire other nations to adapt these principles to their own contexts. 3. To inspire entrepreneurs. Beyond governments, the book speaks directly to entrepreneurs and innovators. Its stories of Israeli startups show how creativity often comes from necessity, how boldness matters more than resources, and how failure is embraced as part of growth. The authors wanted to tell readers, don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't be afraid of risk. Start now with what you have. The Israeli mindset of urgency and improvisation is meant to spark courage in anyone pursuing a dream. 4. To shift global perceptions of Israel. Another purpose of the book is reputational. For decades, Israel was seen internationally through the lens of conflict. Senor and Singer wanted to show another side, a country of entrepreneurs, inventors, and innovators whose contributions in technology, medicine, and science benefit the entire world. By highlighting Israel's economic miracle, the book reframes the narrative Israel is not only about politics, it is also about progress, creativity, and possibility. 5. To highlight universal human qualities. At its heart, the book is not only about Israel, it is about universal human qualities that drive innovation. Resilience in the face of challenge. Improvisation when resources are scarce. Collaboration across cultures and disciplines. Boldness in taking risks others avoid. The purpose is to remind readers that these qualities exist everywhere and can be cultivated anywhere. 6. To answer the why now question, the authors also wrote to explain why Israel's rise mattered in the 21st century. In a global economy increasingly powered by ideas rather than raw materials, Israel's example shows how a small nation can compete with giants. For developing countries, the lesson is empowering. You don't need vast oil fields or massive populations to thrive. What you need is creativity, adaptability, and the courage to build. In short, the purpose of Startup Nation is to challenge the belief that innovation requires perfect conditions, provide a blueprint for governments and organizations, inspire entrepreneurs to embrace risk and resilience, shift global perceptions of Israel, highlight universal traits that foster creativity, demonstrate how small nations can thrive in a knowledge economy. Senor and Singer didn't write the book just to analyze Israel. They wrote it to ignite a conversation about innovation everywhere. They wanted to show that greatness is not about what you have, but about how you think, act, and respond to challenges. That is why the book continues to resonate, because its purpose is timeless. To remind us that innovation is not the product of comfort, but of courage, and that anyone, anywhere, can build their own startup nation. I think there's looking with mind, the key lessons, how to apply them, and real-life illustrations. 1. Adversity fuels innovation. The lesson: Israel's environment has been anything but easy limited land, scarce water, constant security threats. Yet instead of being paralyzed, Israelis turned adversity into an engine for creativity. Scarcity demanded efficiency, conflict demanded resilience, and constant threats demanded innovation. How to apply? On a personal level, stop waiting for perfect conditions. Begin where you are with what you have. On a national or corporate level, use constraints as creative challenges. Ask, how can scarcity make us smarter, faster, or leaner? Illustration: Israel pioneered drip irrigation technology, a farming method that conserves water in arid conditions. What started as survival innovation is now used worldwide to combat drought. 2. Military service as a training ground. The lesson: mandatory military service in Israel is not just about defense, it's a leadership school. Soldiers learn teamwork, improvisation, responsibility at a young age, and the courage to make quick decisions under pressure. How to apply? For individuals, embrace environments that push you beyond comfort zones. Leadership is forged in challenge. For organizations, simulate urgency and responsibility. Give young employees real authority and space to make decisions. Illustration: the Israeli cybersecurity firm Checkpoint was founded by military veterans who applied their defense training to digital threats. Their adaptability became the cornerstone of a global tech leader. 3. The power of immigration. The lesson: Israel is a nation of immigrants. Waves of newcomers brought diversity, fresh perspectives, and resilience born of displacement. Immigrants often have little to lose, making them bold risk takers. How to apply? Personally, value your unique background as a source of creativity. Nationally, welcome diversity immigrants, expand the pool of ideas, and drive innovation. Illustration: Intel's research and development in Israel is led largely by immigrant engineers. Their diverse backgrounds have fueled breakthroughs in microprocessor technology. 4. Informal culture and chutzpah. The lesson: Israelis are known for chutzpah boldness, directness, and refusal to accept hierarchy blindly. This cultural trait encourages questioning, challenging authority, and proposing unconventional ideas. How to apply? Personally, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. In companies, flatten hierarchies to encourage open dialogue and innovation. Illustration: when Waze was developed, its creators didn't wait for big corporations to lead the way. They trusted their bold vision of community-powered navigation and disrupted the industry, eventually being acquired by Google for $1.1 billion. 5. Government as a catalyst, not controller. The lesson: Israel's government actively supported innovation, but instead of controlling markets, it acted as a catalyst, providing seed funding, tax incentives, and venture capital frameworks that encouraged risk-taking. How to apply? Governments invest in R&D, create startup-friendly regulations. Entrepreneurs. Seek partnerships with institutions that provide initial support, but keep independence. Illustration. The Yozma program in the 1990s jump-started Israel's venture capital industry by offering matching funds for private investors. This model has since been studied and adapted worldwide. 6. Risk-taking and acceptance of failure. The lesson? In Israel, failure is not stigmatized. It's seen as part of the process. Entrepreneurs are expected to fail, learn, and try again. This cultural trait reduces fear and accelerates innovation. How to apply? Personally, reframe failure as feedback, not defeat. Organizationally, create cultures where experimentation is encouraged and mistakes are treated as learning. Illustration. Shai Agassi, founder of Better Place, launched an ambitious electric car infrastructure project. Though it failed commercially, the lessons influenced the global electric vehicle movement, including Tesla. 7. The network effect. The lesson. Israel's small size and tight-knit culture mean people are highly interconnected. Entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators collaborate and share resources freely, creating a powerful ecosystem. How to apply? Personally, build networks intentionally. Collaboration multiplies opportunities. For companies, nations, foster ecosystems where talent, capital, and ideas flow easily. Illustration. Silicon Wadi, Israel's version of Silicon Valley, thrives not because of geography, but because of networks of entrepreneurs who help each other succeed. 8. Urgency and speed. The lesson. In a nation where security and survival are constant concerns, urgency becomes part of the culture. Israelis act quickly, iterate rapidly, and value execution over perfection. How to apply? Personally, don't wait for perfect launch. Learn, adapt. In business, encourage fast experimentation and quick decision-making. Illustration. During crises, Israeli tech firms have pivoted rapidly, for example, producing medical innovations under extreme time pressure, which later reached global markets. 9. Thinking globally. From day one. The lesson. With a small domestic market, Israeli companies cannot survive by serving only local customers. Startups think globally from the very beginning, designing products for international markets. How to apply? Entrepreneurs. Design your product or service with scalability beyond your immediate market. Professionals. Adopt a global mindset. Your skills can impact beyond borders. Illustration. Mobileye. The Israeli company that developed driver assistance systems built its technology for global use. It was later acquired by Intel for over $15 billion, becoming one of the largest deals in automotive tech. 10. Purpose and mission. The lesson? Many Israeli entrepreneurs are driven not just by profit, but by mission, whether national survival, environmental solutions, or global health. This sense of purpose fuels perseverance. How to apply? Personally, align your work with a deeper mission. Nationally, encourage entrepreneurship that solves real-world problems, not just short-term gains. Illustration. Given Imaging, creator of the swallowable camera pill for medical diagnostics, revolutionized healthcare worldwide. Its founders weren't just building a company, they were solving a life-saving problem, pulling it all together. The lessons of Startup Nation combine into a powerful philosophy of innovation. Adversity fuels creativity. Military and immigrant experiences build resilience. Boldness and informality spark ideas. Governments can catalyze without controlling. Failure is part of success. Networks, urgency, and global vision accelerate growth. Purpose gives meaning beyond profit. These are not just lessons for Israel, they are universal truths. Any nation, company, or individual can adopt them. The real miracle of Startup Nation is not Israel alone, it's the reminder that innovation is a mindset available to all. When you finish Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle, you realize it is not only about Israel, it is about the human capacity to innovate, adapt, and thrive under pressure. The story of Israel's economic rise is extraordinary, but its deeper meaning is universal. Greatness does not come from comfort. It comes from courage, creativity, and resilience. The core takeaway. The book's central message is clear. Constraints can become catalysts. Scarcity of resources, constant conflict, and a small population could have crippled Israel. Instead, they became the very fuel for innovation. Adversity didn't stop progress, it accelerated it. This is the lesson for us all. Whether as nations, companies, or individuals, we don't need perfect conditions to begin. In fact, waiting for ideal circumstances is the surest way to remain stagnant. Progress comes from starting now, using what we have, and turning obstacles into opportunities. Why it matters today. We live in a world of uncertainty, economic crises, climate challenges, political instability, and technological disruption. Many people feel paralyzed by the weight of these problems. Startup Nation shows a different way. Problems are not only to be endured, they can be transformed into platforms for innovation. This matters for entrepreneurs launching startups, governments designing policy, students choosing careers, and anyone who feels the burden of challenge. The lesson is timeless. Adversity can break you, or it can make you. The choice depends on mindset, living the lessons. Imagine applying these lessons in your own life. Instead of complaining about limitations, you use them as creative prompts. Instead of fearing failure, you treat it as feedback. Instead of waiting for perfect resources, you improvise with what's available. Instead of chasing only profit, you align your work with a deeper mission. Living this way would transform not only your results, but your character. It would make you more resilient, adaptable, and courageous traits that matter more than talent or luck. The bigger picture of innovation. The authors remind us that innovation is not just about technology, it is about spirit. It is about cultivating cultures and communities where people dare to take risks, challenge authority, and think globally. It is about turning survival into significance and problems into progress. This is why the book resonates beyond Israel. Because whether you're in Africa, Asia, America, or anywhere else, the message is the same. You already have what you need to build. What you lack in resources, you can make up in creativity. What you lack in size, you can make up in speed. What you lack in comfort, you can make up in courage. Stories that inspire. The book highlights Israeli companies like Waze, Mobileye, and Checkpoint Innovations that changed how we travel, drive, and secure information. But the real inspiration is not the companies, it's the mindset. The willingness to take risks, fail, and start again. History shows this lesson everywhere. Silicon Valley rose from garages, not palaces. Nations like Singapore and South Korea built prosperity not from abundance, but from grit. Entrepreneurs around the world have turned scarcity into strength. Your invitation. Reading Startup Nation is more than learning history. It is receiving an invitation. The invitation is this: stop waiting, stop fearing, and start building. Ask yourself, what adversity in my life can I turn into an advantage? What problem can I solve with creativity instead of complaining? What dream have I delayed because conditions weren't perfect? The answers are the beginning of your own Startup Nation, not of land, but of the spirit. You are not limited by where you are born, by what resources you have, or by the challenges you face. You are only limited by your mindset. If Israel can rise from scarcity to become a hub of innovation, then you too can rise from your constraints to build something meaningful. So don't wait for perfect conditions. Begin, create, innovate. Let adversity sharpen you instead of stopping you. And remember, every great nation, every great company, and every great life begins with one decision to start. If this message inspired you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Awaken Greatness for more transformational lessons from the world's most powerful books. And I'd love to hear from you. What adversity in your life can you turn into an opportunity? Share it in the comments. You never know who your story might inspire. This is your time. This is your challenge. This is your opportunity. Welcome to Awaken Greatness.